the Eastern Conference, and what a disappointment that game one was. And Indiana seemed to have all the momentum going, you know, into that fourth quarter. And until end of that fourth quarter, they basically had the game in the palm of their hands, and they were not able to, a couple plays that they were not able to follow through. As far as the inbound play, not calling a timeout, the turnover that led to overtime that eventually led to Boston winning this game one. Chaz, let's from the lens or perspective of where you're coming from as a journalist and as a person that just loves the game of basketball, what was your take on not just, first the game itself, but then get into the X's and the O's of this game one?
Yeah, I mean, just as a fan, it was a phenomenal game to watch. I mean, we talk about the Celtics jumping out to a 12-0 lead, Pacers
Yeah.
fighting back. Halliburton hits a deep three from near half court to tie it right before halftime. Celtics go on a run to get back, to a double-digit lead by the third quarter. Halliburton hits another three-pointer right before the third quarter buzzer to cut it to one. Fourth quarter goes
Mhm.
back and forth, and then surprisingly enough, the Pacers are the team that forge ahead. We've talked about the Celtic struggles in the clutch, throughout this podcast, and that kind of was coming to a head again. The Pacers go ahead by three. I think it was 117 to 114, if I remember correctly,
Mhm.
where they get the ball back. The Celtics had a few blown chances where they could have either tied the game or cut it down to one. Pacers get it, are fouled. Like you mentioned, Rick Carlisle said it in the post game. He's to blame for this loss because he didn't call timeout. That would have advanced it. You would have got the ball past half court, obviously in a more fortuitous position to inbound the ball. Instead, you're on their side. Andrew Nemhard, I thought he had Halliburton on a cut before where he probably could have gotten the ball to him. Instead, he brought that back and then tried to force it to Siakam. It goes off Siakam. And then in the final seconds, Drew Holiday hits Jaylen Brown in that corner. Phenomenal pass, by the way. I mean, to see it cross court, it looked like the initial play was to try and get it to Tatum in the near corner. They did screens on both sides of it, and he was kind of closed off. So Holiday decided to go to the opposite corner. He hits Brown. Siakam is right there, but he doesn't want to foul, so he kind of pulls his hands back. Jaylen Brown is able to go up, knock down a huge shot to tie the game. And it felt like in that moment that the Celtics, were probably going to go on to win in overtime. But I will say, I thought the Pacers fought in that overtime. They get the lead back. It's going back and forth, and then the Celtics were able to just kind of make the plays down the stretch. Tatum was, I believe, 0 for 4 and scoreless in the final 9 minutes of regulation, which was really concerning. We've talked about where he tends to get a little bit tight in these closing minutes, and that was true again. But then in overtime, I thought he overcame that. He did have a really concerning turnover in that overtime where he kind of threw the ball to no man's land, and the Pacers were able to go down. But he was able to score 10 points in overtime and was a huge part of that win. Obviously, he had the and one to take the lead, and then he get the three-pointer from the top of the key, which I thought was a huge mistake by the Pacers. They sent two with the ball handler. I believe it was Derek White who got downhill in the pick and roll. They sent two to him, left Tatum wide open, and he drilled that. That kind of sealed the win. So I mean, it was a great game. I thought that obviously everybody's going to be talking about the mistake by the Pacers, and I want to get your thoughts on that. But I kind of thought everybody has their own blame to share in that. Carlisle said it's on him. I think that he has to take some blame for it. Nemhard has to for the inbound pass. Halliburton does because as well as he played, he had a few costly mistakes in overtime. The one where he dribbled out of bounds, Holiday was all over him. So I think everybody has to share blame for the Pacers loss. It just seemed like it was a young team playing in their first conference finals game. You're going to make those mistakes. So I want to get your thoughts on that, but I think it probably comes down to the 21 turnovers. I mean, as well as you shoot and as well as they played, it's hard to overcome 21 turnovers against a team like Boston.
We went to game six last series last week,
Yeah,
and we watched the Knicks and the Pacers play in Indiana. We
yeah,
were we were at that game, and I don't think I told you this, but whatever reason, after that game, I just felt that the Pacers would win this series. Like I still had the Knicks winning this series, but I feel like something changed a little bit. I don't know if it was that the Knicks got wore down. I don't know if it was just like a morale shift and like as far as that this team just come out and they obliterate us, and then we don't have no hope. We can't get up for that game 7 because we have an opportunity to close them out, and now we didn't get the job done. And now we're going into game 7 in our building, which should give us enough ammo to be ready. It's in our building. But what did we see back when the Golden State Warriors blew the 3-1 lead? When they had 3 consecutive games where they could have closed out the Cleveland Cavaliers, but they didn't. The Cleveland Cavaliers, obviously, they end up coming back to win that series. The shift that's changed from game to game, Draymond got suspended. And then, the wrinkle fact, it goes over to the game 5, I believe. And then game 6, and we were like, okay, the Golden State Warriors going to get it done. Game 7, the best backcourt in NBA history, shooting backcourt in NBA history, they score a single point in 7 consecutive minutes in game 7. And the Cleveland Cavaliers end up winning the chip, end up winning the series, end up winning. And so this is game 1. And we're already having a situation where you have 21 turnovers. You're making bonehead decisions. You're not call you can't inbound the pass. You know what's the most baffling thing to me out of all of them? I don't even care about any of that stuff. Why didn't you foul and let them shoot a 3? Why didn't you foul and you let them shoot a 3 and send the game into overtime? That's all I want to know. I'm so sick of this notion that I don't foul. We're up 3. I don't foul. I don't foul. We're going to play hard nosed defense. No, foul the motherfucker. Let him go and shoot the free throws. If he make it, okay, you make 2. You're up 1 still. Inbound the ball and play the free throw game. I don't know what the problem is, but out of everything that happened in that game last night, I mean the other day, everything that happened in that game, the turnovers, can't inbound the ball, the mistakes, that pissed me off the most. Because like you're up 3, why would you let them get a 3 off? Like, and they just I don't know if you heard, but they discussed it. And commentary, the commentators discussed it. Reggie and the gang, they discussed should you foul here, and they didn't foul. They didn't foul. So I'm like, why is that a thing? I don't understand. It's not just this game alone. That's like a lot of coaches in the league. Like, why is this a thing? Like, why do you let teams get off good contested good threes and you have the opportunity to win the game? And so I I don't I mean the Celtics are going to win this series. We know that. But it's like, damn, you just had an opportunity to stem home court. And maybe people will change their perspective on who will win this series. Like, but damn, you just blew that. You just blew that game when you had every chance and opportunity to win. All you had to do was make the right play, and you couldn't win. And so this series is over in 5. Like, I see Indiana getting 1 game because you had an opportunity to make it a competitive 6, maybe 7 game series. But like boneheaded plays like that in situations like that cost you championships. It really do. When it comes down to it, the 21 turnovers, everybody has bad games. I'm a Golden State Warriors fan. This team turns the ball over. I mean, the if I pulled a lockout for every turnover this team had in 1 game, I would not have locks anymore. I won't have locks anymore. And so I understand the aspects of all these turnovers. I know it still affects the game, and I know you're giving up points when you do that. But still, in all, 21 turnovers in all, they had ample opportunities to win this game, and they just didn't close it out. And so I'm more concerning on, can you get off the table after that? I'm pretty sure they can. They're young though. But how do you respond for game 2? Are you tunnel vision? Is in one ear, out the other, is one sight, and then is out of your sight at all? Like, I don't even want to think of it. How do they respond tonight? That's going to be the question. Because if Boston come in and win game 2, it's a wrap.
Yeah, I mean, I had this question written down for you because, a lot of the discourse that I've seen since they lost that game is people saying that they blew their only chance to win this series or even extend this series. I think
I
most
think
people,
so.
yeah, most people saw this series probably being in five, maybe six, if the Pacers could steal one of the first two in Boston, and they kind of blew that opportunity. I
I thought they could at least get 2 games. I thought they could. I think at least they could go 6. I don't know if
Yeah.
it. I mean, I believe it's going to 5. But if the Pacers lose tonight, it might be a sweep.
Yeah, I was kind of right there with you thinking I kind of did think that they would steal one in Boston because we've seen this Celtics team, especially without
Hmm.
Porzingis, that they do have tendency to let down their opponents and they let up and they aren't great in clutch minutes. So if the Pacers could keep it close, they'd probably be able to win game one or game two. And then they're undefeated at home in the playoffs. So I thought they'd probably win either game three or game four. And I had Celtics in six, but I thought that the Pacers could at least force it to that point after that game one loss, I think a lot of people are saying now they think it's over in four or five. I wonder, is there any chance, you've kind of already showed your hand on this, that you think this is going to be over in four or five, but do you think there's any chance that the Pacers proved that they can play with the Celtics, and if they can clean up a few mistakes, maybe they do have a chance to win game two?
I think so. I think if anybody has a question of can they play with the Celtics, they wouldn't know basketball. I
Yeah.
think this team is poised. I think they don't have that much experience, but they got a lot of young guns that want to hoop, that want to play at a high level. So there's no doubt that they can be competitive in every game they play in this series. I don't think there will be many blowouts in this series.
Mhm.
I, I don't think I don't think Boston is overwhelmingly better than the Indiana Pacers.
Yeah.
I just think they have a better squad. And at the end of the day, that's all it's going to matter when it comes to this Eastern Conference Finals because Boston is simply not playing. They're not playing the best option available in the Eastern Conference, if we're being quite honest. So they're playing the best option for this year. But if we're looking at the Eastern Conference, where would we rank the Indiana Pacers? We'd probably rank them maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6, depending. We both probably can name 3 or 4 teams that we think are better. We got the 76ers, we got Milwaukee if they're playing right. That's 2 right there, and then also including Boston. So that's 3. And then we start making arguments on Cleveland or Indiana. The Knicks or Indiana. They just beat the Knicks. So we will say they're better. Assuming everyone healthy, I'm assuming the Knicks are a better team, but we don't know. So looking at it from that standpoint, I do think they could be competitive in every game. But I think if they don't win tonight, I don't think this series is long at all. I think it's a 4-game series if the Boston wins tonight. I believe if they win tonight, maybe they can make it to a 5 or 6 game series. I will be shocked if this goes to 7. I will be shocked, like shocked if this goes to 7.
Yeah, I would be too. Um, but I think you're exactly right that this series, at least the games being played out, will continue to be close. I mean, I think
Yeah,
we expect Boston to advance at the end, but there's nothing to show that the Pacers can go into Boston and win game two tonight.
that's all.
I mean, I think a lot of people are saying they blew their only chance because it was such a heartbreaking loss. If they
Because the way they lost.
yeah, if they
Yeah.
would have lost that game by, let's say, 10 to 15 points, people would have said, okay, they're coming off a 7-game series against the Knicks. They only had one day off in between. Now they have a chance to win game two. But since game one, they had a chance and they should have won. They were
They
in
should have won. Yeah.
win. Now it feels like they blew their only chance. I disagree with that. I think if you can pick yourself off the mat and win game two tonight, you still have just as good of a chance as you did if you won game one.
That's the key, though.
Yeah.
How do they respond for game 2?
Yeah, and we
It's
haven't
going to tell both of us. It's going to tell both of us how this series is going to play out.
yeah,
Because if they have a mentality of game 1 was game 1 and let's move forward,
yeah,
then we could see a potential a 6-game series.
yeah,
But if we're getting a mentality that it drags over, some teams they let heartbreaker losses drag over to the next game. Some teams got tunnel vision.
yeah.
So it really depends. It depends on how he's going to coach his team and how tough minded their superstar is, um, how tough minded this team is overall. Like it's going to determine how far the series go.
Yeah, and I think we've seen, even though neither of us would have picked the Pacers to be in this position at the beginning of the playoffs, I think they have shown that they are resilient. I mean, they were down 2-0 in that Knicks series. They were down
Yeah.
3-2 when we saw game 6. And I thought they came out in that game with a great mindset, and they were really aggressive, and they really started to show the type of team that they can be if they are clicking on all cylinders. I think Miles Turner and Rick Carlisle said it in that game, in the press conference after the game we went to, that that's the optimal version of the Pacers. It's not the team that is pushing the tempo and is shooting
Mhm,
53 pointers a game and is trying to simply outscore you. They need to play at
mhm,
that level on offense. They need to push the pace. They need to get good shots. They need to take a lot of threes, but they also need to play at a high level on defense. Okay, they're
Absolutely.
one of the best defensive teams in the league, but if they can be average or above average, then their offense and that defense can at least keep them in games. I mean, we saw in that game 6 and then even more in game 7 where they shot the lights out in game 7. I mean, we didn't even mention it because we didn't record since that game, but that was the
mhm.
best shooting performance in NBA playoff history that they had in game 7. But
Absolutely.
I thought their defense also was so important in that game because they wore down Jalen Brunson